Check out this picture of me when I'm like 4 years old and I'm riding a pony. Hey folks, I know an announcement video probably isn't what you want to see. Announcement videos are always so boring, but there's a lot going on and I want to make sure you're all keeping in the loop. So I'll make it fast and then we'll do some guitar playing. It's easy. First of all, I survived the hurricane. Things didn't end up hitting my part of Raleigh that bad. I hope everyone else is managing to stay safe, maybe even finding some time to do some flat picking. Number 2, there's a new website. Looking at it over here, there's a new lessonswithmarcel.com that I've been working on for like 6 months now. It's really easy to keep up with all the new YouTube videos, the Jazzgrass licks, the podcast, everything else. It's all on the front page. You can sign up for Skype lessons there. You just scroll down to that spot and you see it all works out. It's easy. Just shoot me a message. Last but not least, you can check out the tab store. There's tons of free tabs. I see people grabbing them every day. Don't be left behind. Go get those tabs. I know you want them. Thing number 3, there's merch. That's right. I never thought that I would have like my own merchandise, like t-shirts and stuff, but it happened. There's 3 t-shirts that are out. There's a baseball tee with an awesome vintage kind of retro logo on there. The same logo comes on a short sleeve tee. Hopefully you're seeing pictures of that somewhere on the screen right now. And lastly, I have the flat chested t-shirt that's got tab on it for the Lester Flat G run. It is a funny joke. I haven't even gotten my first one yet. I'm going to get my first one like this weekend. I'm going to wear mine every single day because I love shirts with my own name on them. Finally, thing number 4, in the world of Jazz and Grass, that's our daily lick account on Instagram. We just broke 1,000 followers. So congratulations to you, Lyman, because I know you did 50% of the work, but yeah, we did it. We're at 1,000. It feels so good. So if you haven't followed us on there, please go and do that. Please follow us. It really helps to know that the community is supporting us and that you guys want to see more. And that's really the only way to show us that. Also, for those of you that aren't on Instagram, there is a new way to find Jazz and Grass licks, and that's going to be these compilation videos that we're going to post on YouTube. I've already posted the first one, so if you want to see all of my licks from August 2018 that I posted on the Jazz and Grass Instagram account, you can find that in my last video, and they're just all laid up right after each other. Just make that video full screen and you'll be able to see that tab better. One more thing about Jazz and Grass, actually. I haven't been on the podcast in weeks and I'm back, baby. I'm back. I'm back on that podcast. It was a good one. We talked a lot about country guitar, about like Johnny Highland. So if you're into that, please go watch that. Lyman struggled with that and that was wonderful. I love it when Lyman struggles because it's normally just me kind of with drool dripping out of my face as Lyman talks about complicated jazz chord theory. And that's it. Announcement's over. So let's move on to the guitar stuff. All right, so these 6 ideas are a really important part of the country vocab. I'm sure you've heard it before. If you've heard it anywhere, you've probably heard it in the beginning of Hank Williams' Lovesick Blues. If you're not familiar with that, you're probably familiar with the lead part to Brown Eyed Girl. So I'm sure you can hear it sounds like a harmonized line. There's 2 voices. You could call it a double stop or whatever you want, but that's what it is. It's 2 notes that are separated and they're creating some kind of basic harmonic outline. So throughout this video, when I give examples, I'm going to do it 2 ways. First time, I'm just going to do a pinch. So I'm going to hold my pick and then I'm going to pinch with my middle finger. And I'm going to just play all of the different, groupings of notes, all those double stops. And then the second time, I'm going to try to make something up. And it's probably going to involve some alternating back and forth between those 2 and maybe some slides and stuff like that. I'm going to make something more interesting. Now remember, these licks are supposed to be interesting, unique, and creative. I'm not trying to hide the things that I improvise from you. You're welcome to slow down the video and figure them out. They're probably not going to be worth a lot. What's going to be worth a lot more is if you take the time to play with those things and you create your own language with them. All right, here's just a little bit of theory before we get moving on. We find some ways that these things are commonly used. We need to think about why these things are called sixths. It's because they're actually 6 intervals apart. So if we take these 2 notes that happen to work well over a G chord and we use the G major scale to connect those 2 notes, you'll see that it's 6 steps apart. Once again, I am not playing my Martin because today's video is sponsored by Taproot Guitars right here in Raleigh, North Carolina. So this is a Blue Ridge BG 160. I'm looking at the stats. It's about 20 years old. Spruce top, rosewood back and sides. Doug is asking about $7.99. It's got a deluxe case. You can see how shiny this thing is. I've put my fingerprints all over it. Also, my fingerprints are worth money, man. Don't you know? I'm on YouTube. Anyway, if you have any more questions and you want to see all the specs, please go to taprootguitars.com. You can make an offer to Doug if you're interested in this guitar. I liked it. I played it. I'm playing it for this video. If I didn't like it, I wouldn't be playing it. Alright, so an obvious place to start would be to create one of these 6 shapes for every single note of the major scale. To do that, we first have to make sure that we can play a major scale on one string. So if you don't know how to do that without a little bit of guessing, there's actually a simple pattern or formula that you can remember. So the important thing is we want to start on the note that we want to be our root or our tonic. So in this case, we do want to start on a G note. So on our E string, we're going to start on 3rd fret. Now after that, the major scale will always follow the same pattern, and that's whole, whole, half, whole, 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 half. And when I say whole or half, I'm talking about what kind of step we're taking. So either a whole step or a half step. It's a half step, it's going to be the fret right next door. If we were on 7th fret, it would be 8th fret. A whole step will mean we skip a fret. So if we're on 3rd fret, we would go to 5th fret. A major scale will always be built that way. Here's the tab, and I hope you can see that. That's going to be an easy way to remember it, so you don't have to think about a bunch of numbers because they're just going to be forgotten. Alright, let's add our second note to make our 6 shapes. Now, this actually follows a pattern as well. Basically, these shapes always come in pairs except for the tonic. All of these shapes use the G string and the E string, but there's only 2 shapes that you have to learn. The first one is, for instance, with 3rd fret on your E string, you're going to push down 4th fret on your G string, right? So that's offset by 1 fret value. Now, shape 2 always has the strings pushed down on the same fret. So for instance, 5 and 5 or 7 and 7, you just push down both your fingers on the same fret. Now the pattern that these follow is that we're going to get shape 1, and then we get shape 2 twice, then we get shape 1 twice, and we get shape 2 twice, and then we get shape 1 again. That's the pattern that it always follows, nice and easy. So here's an example of the completed harmonized G major scale in 6th. Alright, so we can think of each of these little shapes as a different chord that would be natural to the key of G major. For instance, G major, A minor, B minor, C major, D major, E minor, F sharp diminished, then G major again. But that's really not going to be useful for us. Most songs don't have all of those chords, and we don't really want to jump around that neck that much. Now, how I like to think about it is that, I mean, the 3 most common chords in a song in the key of G would be G, C, and D. So if we can make each one of those shapes G, C, or D, then we're going to have a lot more uses for these shapes. Luckily, these shapes only have 2 notes in them. Most chords have 3 notes in them. So most of these, well, actually all of these can fall into the category of G, C, and D, and they'll have the chord tones that would go with that chord. With all 7 of these shapes and then 1 again, I feel G, D7, G, then C, D, C, D, G. Anyway, here's that same tab again, but now you can see it harmonized differently, and try to get that view in your head because that's going to be the more useful one. Alright, our main chromatic variation here we'll call the lovesick blues cliche because that's probably where a lot of us heard this lick for the first time. When I say cliche, I don't mean it in a negative way. Cliche in music, or in jazz terms, I guess, has no negative connotations. It means that something is commonplace, but kind of in a positive way, right? Because when you hear things in music over and over again, they become more ingrained in your mind. When you hear them in different songs, you like them more. That's why there's so many songs that have a similar part, right? They're cliches. So in the lovesick blues cliche, we want to think about what our main scale degrees are on our E string, right? If we're thinking about our G major scale. And those happen to be B, B flat, A, and G. So this minor third movement is something we see a lot in bluegrass and country. And in the tab, that looks like this. So when we add the 6 shapes, we get some basic implications of harmony. It implies, but does not fully outline, the chord change of G, and that brief chromatic passing moment to D7 and then to G. But because this chord structure isn't fully outlined with 3 notes per chord or 4 notes per chord in the case of the D7, it's very easy to use this over a rhythm guitar player that's just playing a G chord. So you can do this over any major chord, just make sure you're ending on that right note, right? You have to end on the root note of the chord. So here's an example for C, and here's an example for D as well. Remember, like I said before, for each of these little licks, we are briefly implying that 5 chord. So in the case of C, we have C, G7, C. In the case of D, we have D, A7, D. Normally, that won't be a problem. But if that lick ever sounds weird or isn't really working in a situation, maybe that's why. So a lot of times to create movement in a break or in a solo, we can use dominant 7s to signal chord changes as they come up. If you want to learn about all the times you might use dominant 7th chords to outline a basic bluegrass chord progression, you should check out my video using 7th chords. In this case, the key of G, we're only going to worry about 2 moments, and that's moving from G to C, in which case we would briefly insert a G7 chord, G, G7, C, and then we want to worry about moving from D to G, in which case we would briefly insert a D7 chord, D, D7, G. So how do we find the dominant 7th? All right, I've talked about this in a lot of my videos. This is very easy to do. The dominant 7th is always a whole step down from the root. So for instance, if we're talking about a G chord, we have a G note on 3rd fret of our E string. It's going to be a whole step down. We're going to skip a fret. That's going to be 1st fret. That's going to be an F natural. So we can take a chromatic movement like that, where I walked from the root to the dominant 7th, and we can add shape 1 to each note, and then we have this nice move that implies G7 where it lands. That's technically G9 for all the nerds out there that are going to notice that you're playing the 9th on your G string. So the only thing left to do after that is to resolve to C. And if you remember, up here on the 12th fret, right here, that was a C chord. So that's going to be the same as our open E and G string over here. Same notes, just an octave difference. So our completed lick moving from G to G7 to C sounds like this. The pattern will look exactly the same in our D to D7 to G situation. It just gets moved up the neck a little bit. Here it is. Remember, the rhythm player doesn't have to be playing that dominant 7th note in their chord. You can be the only one playing it, and that's fine. It's still going to get that feeling across to the audience. It's really not a big deal. You just got to make sure that you're putting it in the right place during that transitional moment from 5 to 1. Because if you put it somewhere else, it's probably not going to make sense, and then it doesn't work. Okay, so there's a lot of other little secrets and tricks that people use when they're playing these kind of 6th licks. But the first thing that you should do if you want to keep learning about this is you should move everything I told you to the B and D strings, because it's going to work exactly the same. For instance, if I start on my C note here, if I want to do this for C, I can follow the same pattern where I have shape 1, a whole step, shape 2, another whole step, shape 2, half step, shape 1, and then I have a whole step, shape 1, whole step, shape 2, whole step, shape 2, half step, shape 1. I know that was a lot, but those are 2 patterns at the same time. So if you want to memorize those patterns individually, you're going to have an easier time. But that would be the same pattern for C. And then you would take those things and you would think about your C, F, and G chords, and you would try to apply all the ideas I told you earlier in the video. And I'm going to let you do that on your own, because that's how you actually build brain power. Doing things by yourself, figuring out things for yourself, not just listening to some guy on the internet and copying things off tab. All right, one more thing. If you need any specific examples of like how you can mix up those 6 licks, I guess you can go check out Jazz and Grass. There's a bunch of licks. You can dig through all of my licks, see if you can find some example of 6. I'm sure you can. They're all over the place. Anyway, if you like taking a lesson from the biggest, baddest Billy Goat in the barnyard, there's a couple things you can do. Obviously, you can like, you can comment, you can subscribe, all the normal YouTube things. You can find me on Instagram. You can find me on Facebook. You can check out my website, website, lessonswithmarcel.com, the new website. What do I got? I got Skype lessons. I got merch. I got the tab store. So much stuff you can check out. Also, there's Jazz and Grass. Check out the Instagram account where you can see all of our licks that we post every single day. You can check out the compilations on YouTube, and you can check out the podcast because I am back on there. Man, I think that's everything. I just rocked through that. Almost like I'm getting better at it. All right, I'll see you guys next time.